Let me ask you guys 3 questions. If you stopped showing up to your business for 90 days, would it still be running when you got back? Number 2, if a buyer walked in tomorrow and offered a fair price for your business, would you actually take it? Or would you know in your gut that it actually isn't worth what you actually want? And the third one is, if your business sells for a number that you're not happy with, do you know exactly the reason why? Now, if any of those landed with you, stay with me, because over the next 20 to 30 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the 5-step process that I take a business from founder dependent to actually worth selling. Not in 5 years, but actually starting this week. Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. I'm Adam Strong. I've spent the last 30 years helping founders get their business ready for exit. I've sat on both sides of the table. I've been a strategic advisor, helping people buy businesses, but I've also helping people sell their business. I've also been the founder who's built a very successful 6-figure business, stepped away and watched it fall apart. But hey, that's a story for another time. That's the reason why I do what I do, right? So in today's episode, there are 5 steps. Now, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to have a pen and paper handy. And if you're listening to this in the gym or on your dog walk or whatever it might be, make sure you pause and rewind and go back to what we're going to be talking about today. So, step number 1, productize the promise. Now, here's the thing: like when I walk people through the productize the promise thing, when we think about the promise, I think about the result or the transformation. If you've been in a networking situation and you've had someone that's walked away because they simply didn't get what you did, or someone's come up to you and said, "So what do you specialize in?" And you might turn around and say, "Well, I'm an accountant, I'm an IT consultant, I'm a lawyer," whatever it might be. Or you might go off on a tangent and use a lot of language which is very waffly. So now the challenge with that, when an investor or a buyer comes to buy your business, it's very difficult because what they're doing is they're comparing apples for apples or pears for pears. And when someone sits across with you at the table that wants to buy your business and they see a services sell for 2x multiple. All right. That's all they sell for. They sell for 2x multiple. But if you've got a product can actually sell between 4 and 6x multiple. There's a real big difference. So what I want you to do, and it's not because you're not a great business, it's because of the way it's been packaged and how you packaged it. So here's an exercise that I'd really like for you to do. And I found it really, really useful. It's certainly great if you want to get some clarity. I'm going to give you a sentence and you're going to fill in the blanks effectively. So the sentence is, I help. Who is it that you help, right? Who's the who? Okay. So who is the who? Get. What is it that they're getting? What's the result? Promise or transformation? What is it what do they get? They get the result, promise, or transformation. Depending on which industry and what vertical you're in, is going to depend on what that looks like. In X as in duration. So how long is it going to take for me to achieve my result, promise, or transformation? So that's the third part. The fourth part is, without the pain. So what is the pain that I'm not going to experience if I did it myself, for example? So let me give you some examples. I help entrepreneurs pay less tax in less than 30 days without being in compliance at HMRC. That's an example. I help, and I used to be a PT, for example, but I specialized in high sports performance. So I help, and the who would be, in my case, it would be I help men over the age of 40 get ready for a big event like a half marathon in less than 90 days without injury, for example. Or if you're a chiropractor, I help women over the age of 40 achieve less back pain in less than 10 days without weight training, for example. So it's I help the who get the result or transformation or the promise in X, which is the amount of days, without whatever pain that you can take away from them. All right. So that's what I want you to think about. All right. So that's step number one. Step number two, replace yourself twice. Now, I want you to think over the last 3 to 4 weeks. Were you on a delivery call? Did you quote for any work before it went out? When is it that you actually took your last holiday? Did your laptop go with you? If that's a yes to any of those things, by the way, what's actually going on is that there are 2 jobs in your business, and both of them still have your name on them. One is delivering the work. The other one is running the business, so the management of the business. Now, until both of those are off you, you don't own a business, you own a glorified job. The business owns you effectively. Now, here's the problem with that. If you stop, the business stops. A buyer sees that immediately. And what they're looking to do is they're looking to reduce their risk. So do your team, by the way, even if they don't say it, the whole thing has one point of failure, and that is with you. Exercise number 2 is a very simple exercise. There are 2 columns here, okay? So, and in the 2 columns, what I'd like you to do is on the left, I want you to write only I can do. And on the right-hand side, I want you to write down someone else can do. Now, what I want you to do over the next week is I want you to list down every task you did over the last week. Now, I want you to really be honest with yourself here, okay? Most people find that 70% of what's in their left-hand column here, okay, actually belongs here in the right-hand column. Now, that's not a failure by any stretch of the imagination. It just means, what is it that you can do to outsource things? The number one goal for you guys really is to get as many of the activities or exercises over to the right-hand part of the column. Okay, that's the absolute number one. So the goal really is to build a business that doesn't rely on you. Okay, so you want to think about this. Is a really useful exercise. Okay, so and then as you start making all the list, you'll then start to think, wow, I do so much in the business. What does my team actually do? So first exercise, only I can do. Start writing down all your top activities and exercises and tasks that you're doing. On the right-hand side, I want you to write down some of the things that your team are doing so someone else can do. All right. And I want you to think about your stop doing list, all the things that you need to stop doing in terms of trying to get people more to this right-hand part of the column. Okay. So the idea is to get yourself out the business. Okay. So you can take a holiday, you can do things, and you can enjoy running a business and not building a glorified job. Okay. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is called Systemise the sale. Now, have a think about your team. When somebody joins, I always think about how long does it take for someone to become useful? Does it take them a week? Does it take them a month? Does it take them 3 months? Does it take them a day? If your team is asking you things that you've answered before over and over and over again, or they're not completing things, or they're not getting things done, who is to blame? It is us. It is you. Because when you're pointing one finger at somebody else, 5 fingers are pointing back at you. It's all about taking responsibility. Now, here's the bit that matters, is that it's about what you've done is you've hired what we call helpers. Now, what helpers do is, yes, they help you with the business, but effectively they are dependent on your memory. They're dependent on their own memory, because there's no documents, or there's nothing out there that they can go back to and revert to as like an instruction manual. All right. So I want you to write down, as if somebody is starting on Monday morning, a new hire, for example, a new person in your team. Okay. They've got no document. They've got nothing to start with. What I want you to think about is, I want you to think about a particular task. Now, it could be answer the phone correctly, or them to understand the sales process, or something like that. Okay. So what I would like you to do is, I'd like you to be able to break down using like a checklist. Okay. So you'd start to label out what they need to do step by step. So it's a bit like passing an instruction manual to a complete Homer Simpson that doesn't know anything about your business, but they know step by step how to complete a set task or a set activity. Now, one of the things that I absolutely love doing in my business, by the way, is I like to jump onto an app called Loom, Loom, Loom. Now you can use Zoom, whatever you want to do. And I will start to write out, or I start to describe, what is it that I would like somebody else to do? So if there's something eating into your time on a weekly basis, whether it be making calls, doing follow-ups, whatever it might be, could you delegate it to somebody else? And if you could, what's the process that you are using that you could then document and leave it for somebody else? The more documents that you have, the more the value of the business. So think about what I want you to think about this. Think about something that, and it could be the onboarding process. It could be the customer journey. If you've got nothing written down, here is a very useful exercise. Okay. Write down how you could pass this on to somebody else that knows nothing about your business. Step number 4, engineer the pipeline. Now, I absolutely love step number 4, engineer the pipeline, because obviously the pipeline is absolutely crucial. Now, pipeline is very different from just leads, but I want you to think about, like, when a buyer, I want you to think about this. Where did your last 5 clients come from? Now, I want to really think about this. You know, was it in a networking meeting? Was it because you spoke at a particular event? Was it because you put a post out on LinkedIn and it got some traction? You got some DMs. Okay. Was it because you were featured on a podcast? Whatever it might be. So now here's the question. If you stop posting tomorrow, if you stop speaking, if you stop showing up in your business, what happens to that pipeline over the next 90 days? And if it goes quiet, then you don't have a pipeline. You've got a business which is based on your personal reputation. And those are 2 completely different things. A reputation is you, and a pipeline is the business. Here's why it matters, because when a buyer looks at your numbers, the first thing they're going to ask is where's this actual revenue actually coming from? How do you generate this pipeline? Okay. And what they're worried about is, if you leave the business, then what? So they're thinking, how can I be risk adverse? If the answer is no, okay, then you're not selling a business, you're selling yourself, and you have to stick around for that earnout to prove that you can, that it can't fall apart without you. Okay. So this week is another useful exercise I'd like to do, is I'd like you to list out all the different sources of business that you got. Okay. Now, next to each one, I want you to write down the word either F or B. Now, the F stands for founder dependent, and the B stands for business dependent or business owned. So step number 5 is called position to sell. Now, what I'd like you to do is in the middle here of this piece of paper, I want you to answer this question. What can you say or do about your business that no one else in your industry can say or do? This is a really difficult question, especially for a lot of the clients that I'm working with right now. And some of the things that they tend to come up with is, we're a family run business. We care about our clients. We've got 20 years of experience. Now, that, ladies and gentlemen, is not positioning. They are what we call standards. Now, there's a difference between standards and unique positioning. That is not unique at all, because guess what? Someone else can say that. All right. Now, if you're hesitating about that answer, then you haven't got a positioning. Okay. You've just got what we call a category. Okay. So you're in an industry that everyone else is. And the problem with that is that, especially if you're in a business such as an accountancy business or a professional services firm, it can be very much easily commoditized in many different ways. Here's the thing: clients can shop you. There are 2 buckets that you can fit your business in. The first bucket is that you can compete on what we call price. Okay. Or you can compete in value. The real difference here between these two is that, I use the car industry as an example. Now, why do people pay large amounts of money for a Ferrari, for example? Okay. Because not everyone can afford a Ferrari or a McLaren or whatever it might be. But there are specific types of buyers that feel like it's great value for money and they'll buy it. But then you might have people that are more conscientious of price, and that's okay. So you've got to think about, which bucket do you want to fit in? Do you want to compete on the price, or do you want to compete on value? So in terms of like your unique selling proposition or your positioning statement, on a sheet of paper, I want you to write down one thing. It could be a couple of things, but write down one thing that you can claim that your business owns, does, that no other firm or agency or business does in your space. Could be that you have an important part of IP, intellectual property. Okay. It could be that your business has a unique methodology or framework. It could be that you have an extensive client list. For example, it could be that your unique position is the client list that you hold. It might be a specific type of clientele. So what is it that you can uncover as part of that? That's how you can build what we call an uncopyable business. Now, we talked about this in a podcast with my very good friend, Mr. Les Evans, back in, I think it was around February or March of 2026. Make sure you go check out that check out that podcast episode, because it was absolutely fantastic. So let's just give a quick recap, because I know there's lots of things that we just went through. So there are 5 steps. The first thing that we talked about was productizing the promise. So that's step number 1. Okay. Step number 2, we talked a little bit about how to replace yourself twice. And in this one, I talked a little bit about on the left-hand side of the column and the right-hand side of the column. So we talked a little bit about the stop doing list. Step number 3 is systemizing the business or systemizing the sale. Okay, so talking a little bit about, if someone joins on Monday morning, do they have a campaign? Do they have a framework? Do they have a checklist? Do they have an instruction manual? And I always use the analogy of, that when I was a kid, for example, even my son, who's 8 years old, he loves playing with Lego, but he has to follow the instruction manual from A to Z in order to complete the model that he needs. Now, if he didn't have the instruction manual, it would take him 10 times longer and he would probably make quite a few mistakes. Okay, so what is the instruction manual for your business? That's step number 3. Step number 4 is engineering the pipeline. Okay, so how are you engineering the pipeline? And then step number 5 is positioning. Now, I've given you 5 different exercises. Hopefully you'll get through that over the next week if you do 1 exercise per day. Just the exercises, if you complete just the exercises alone, I know that you'd know more about the real value of your own business than 90% of founders who walk through into an exit conversation. And that's not just because you're clever. That's because I see this week in and week out, this lack of unpreparation, the unpreparation of founders that are having conversations with sellers, and they're not just looking at it from the seller's perspective. Sellers want to be risk averse. They want to reduce their risk, and they're always looking for ways to discount your business before they buy it. But I can guarantee if you work through these 5 different steps, it will help you to become more prepared when it comes to selling your business or building a self-managing company. Now, just to wrap up, I built what we call the Exit Readiness Diagnostic. Now, it scores you against these 5 particular areas, and it gives you a personalized report at the very end. It tells you exactly the gaps in your business or where you're weak in your business. It takes about 4 minutes to complete. It's completely free, by the way. The link is in the show description notes below, but if you're a little bit lazy, you can go to readytoexit.scoreapp.com. That's readytoexit.scoreapp.com. One more last thing before we go as well. If you found this episode particularly valuable or you found it particularly useful, do me a favor, send it to another founder or another business owner within your network who needs to hear this. And again, this is how the podcast grows. And let's get it into the hands of the people that need it. So listen, from me, Adam Strong, hope you enjoyed today's episode, and hopefully we'll see you again on The Business Strategist. Take care. See you soon. Cheers now. Bye-bye.